We saw a human figure, but its joints bent the wrong way. I said it without raising my voice. Sound felt wrong in the forest, as if anything spoken too loudly would not echo but sink, carried downward through root and soil to something listening far below. The words left my mouth and disappeared, absorbed by the moss at our feet. We were deeper than planned. The trail had thinned into nothing hours ago, replaced by instinct and the unreliable guidance of a GPS that kept drifting sideways. The forest here was ancient but not majestic. The trees were thick and broad, their trunks layered with old scars, bark folded over itself like healed wounds that never quite forgot the damage. Roots surfaced everywhere, looping and knotting into ridges that forced us to walk carefully, as though we were crossing the exposed skeleton of something buried alive. The air was cold and wet, heavy with the smell of decay and iron. It clung to the back of my throat. Breathing felt deliberate, like an action that required permission. Dusk didn't fall so much as condense. Light drained from the spaces between trees until distance collapsed and depth became unreliable. Shadows stopped behaving like shadows. They gathered where they shouldn't, lingering even when our headlamps passed over them. That was when Mara stopped. She didn't point. She just raised her hand and froze. Ahead of us, beyond a curtain of hanging moss, something stood in a shallow clearing. At first glance, it looked human. Upright posture, head angled slightly forward, arms resting at its sides, the familiar geometry of a person waiting. Then it moved. Its knees bent backward, smoothly, as if they had been designed that way. One arm lifted, the elbow folding the wrong direction without resistance. There was no sound of strain, no crack or pop, just motion, measured, intentional, practiced. The forest went silent all at once. Insects stopped mid-song. The faint breeze died. I could hear my own pulse, loud and wet in my ears, and beneath it a dry, clicking sound, rhythmic and patient, like joints being tested one at a time. The figure tilted its head. I felt pressure behind my eyes, a sensation like fingers pressing gently against my skull. It wasn't simply looking at us. It was studying us, measuring proportions, recording movement. We backed away slowly. Leaves shifted under our boots, the sound grotesquely loud in the stillness. The figure did not follow. Instead, it leaned forward, its spine bowing into an impossible curve, and stepped sideways into the trees. The moss parted for it and then closed again, as if the forest itself had made room. Only after it vanished did sound creep back in, cautious and incomplete. A distant owl, water dripping somewhere unseen. We should have turned back. Every instinct demanded it. But fear narrows decisions, and the way behind us felt longer, heavier, already hostile. So we moved forward instead, faster now, our headlamps carving thin, jittering tunnels through the undergrowth. The ground sloped downward into a basin where cold pooled like water. It clung to our ankles and rose slowly, numbing. The smell changed there. Less rot, more sweetness, like sap freshly exposed. That was when I noticed the bones. They weren't scattered. They weren't arranged. They were embedded. A deer's ribcage curved out of a tree trunk, half consumed by living wood. A human femur protruded from a root, polished smooth by moisture and time. The forest had not rejected them. It had grown around them uninterrupted. Mara found the stone marker just before full dark. It was ancient, its edges softened by lichen until it nearly merged with the surrounding rock. Symbols were carved into its surface, branching lines that resembled roots, veins, and nervous systems all at once. "This isn't a boundary," she whispered. "It's a warning." We camped anyway. The basin felt wrong, but contained, like the center of something vast. The fire burned low and nearly smokeless. Shadows leaned inward as night deepened. Every few minutes, I heard the clicking again, closer now, restrained, patient. I remembered the stories then, local folklore dismissed as metaphor. Tales of something beneath the forest, older than soil, older than seeds. Not a spirit, not an animal. Something ecological, something that learned, something that borrowed shapes without understanding them. Sometime after midnight, The fire went out without a sound. I woke to movement at the edge of the clearing. The figure stood just beyond the reach of the headlamp, closer than before. In the dim light, details resolved that made my stomach twist. Its limbs were slightly too long, proportions subtly wrong, like a memory stretched thin. Its surface wasn't skin so much as an impression of skin, layered and textured, as though formed by repeated attempts. I stepped forward. The ground didn't protest. Its joints flexed and corrected mid-motion, refining angles, improving. When it spoke, it used my voice. "Stay," it said. Soft. Perfect. Mara screamed. The sound shattered the basin, and the forest answered. Not with noise, but with movement. Roots shifted beneath us. Trees creaked. The ground tightened, as if bracing. The figure surged forward with impossible speed. It didn't grab Mara so much as overlap her, its shape folding around hers. There was a smell then. Hot sap, copper, and something ancient breaking open after a long dormancy. I ran. Branches tore at my skin. Roots twisted underfoot. Behind me, footsteps followed that didn't match my rhythm, joints clicking as they adjusted, learning faster now. I burst out onto the road at dawn. They never found Mara. No basin. No marker. No remains. Satellite images showed uninterrupted canopy where we had camped. The forest was declared intact. But sometimes, when I walk too long, my knees ache in unfamiliar ways. I hear faint clicking when I move. And in reflective glass, if I turn too quickly, my reflection lags, just long enough for its joints to bend the wrong way before it remembers how to be me. Something crawled out from behind a tree, whispering, "Don't look at me." I first heard it before I saw it. A soft scraping, wet and deliberate, like claws dragged over moss and bark. My boots sank into the damp floor of the forest, half hidden by a thick carpet of needles and rot. The fog rolled between the trees, dense and gray, swallowing light and distorting distance. Every step made the air shiver, and the sound of my own breathing seemed exaggerated, invasive, as if the forest were listening through my lungs. Then the whisper came, "Don't look at me." It was so close, so intimate, that it felt pressed directly into my skull, bypassing ears entirely. I froze. The fog shifted. Shadows bent along the curves of warped trunks. Every tree seemed subtly taller, angles impossible. My eyes darted to a massive spruce. Its roots knotted like ribs, and something moved behind it. It emerged slowly, limbs too long, hands scraping the earth, knees folding backward. Its skin shimmered faintly, not with moisture but with the suggestion of surfaces, of impressions that didn't fully exist. Its head tilted inhumanly as it whispered again, a rasp that matched my own voice exactly. "Don't look at me." I stumbled back. My breath caught in my throat. The forest shifted in response. Branches leaned toward it, moss curling like ears, and I realized with sudden terror that the trees themselves were aware, observing. The fog thinned, widened, then thickened again, subtly guiding my vision away from the creature. I tried to move sideways, but the path behind me seemed to stretch unnaturally, the forest absorbing sound, reshaping space as if it were a living organism. The whispers continued, now overlapping my own thoughts, repeating fragments of memory I didn't recognize as mine. Every word I remembered saying in my life felt warped and rearranged, and I doubted what I had said yesterday, or even an hour ago. The forest was listening, learning, feeding on cognition. I glimpsed it fully once. Only once. My eyes lingered for too long. Its form rippled, elongating and folding upon itself, impossible angles blossoming like the growth rings of a poisoned tree. It recoiled from my gaze. Where its face should have been, there was only suggestion, a blur of features that rearranged with every heartbeat. The whisper twisted to a scream inside my mind. "Don't look at me." My vision faltered. For a moment, the forest behind me seemed to lag. Branches stretched into impossible arcs. Fog lagged, trailing my movements like a reflection that couldn't keep pace. My head ached as if time itself had stuttered. I blinked and the creature was gone. But I could feel it. Watching, learning, waiting. Hours passed, though the sun never changed. I wandered blindly, the forest guiding my steps with a subtle insistence. The ground alternated between soft moss and hard roots. Trees arched over me, forming corridors that narrowed, widened, and sometimes disappeared entirely. My own shadow moved with a delay, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind. I caught glimpses of reflection in wet leaves. A face almost mine, but wrong. Proportions off, joints bending backward, eyes slightly too deep-set. I felt a creeping realization. Looking at it had already begun to alter me. The whispers never left. They threaded through branches, echoed in hollow trunks, slithered along roots. I couldn't tell if they were warnings, lies, or instructions. They repeated fragments of my own voice, my own thoughts, my own memories, but rearranged, corrupted, learned. The forest absorbed identity the way a tide absorbs driftwood. Night deepened without changing the color of the fog. I climbed a ridge only to find the terrain shifted beneath me. The same tree that had been 20 feet ahead moments ago was now looming at the base of the ridge, its roots thick and glistening. I tried to mark my path. Scratches in bark, piles of stones, even broken twigs. They vanished when I looked away. The forest had folded space around itself, hiding evidence of my passage. I stopped near a fallen log, breathing hard, and the whisper returned. "Closer," it said, this time a softer echo of my own voice. Something slid from behind a tree, crawling in a motion that was both purposeful and ungainly. Its limbs bent in ways impossible for a human. Its torso twisted unnaturally as it approached. Each movement was precise, rehearsed. I wanted to look away, and yet I could not entirely. The fog carried its form to me even when I turned my head. My reflection in a puddle rippled as it moved, not in sync with my own, the image bending at angles my body could not replicate. I realized it feared being seen not out of shame, but because observation was the trigger. My gaze had forced it to reshape itself, to fold reality around the edges of its being. I stumbled backward. Every step was delayed, echoing through the forest with a phantom weight. My own hands seemed slightly off, fingers curling wrong in space. Whispers threaded through my mind. Closer, closer, closer. They knew my body, my limits. The creature knew my form, and I knew, with a terror that sank into bone, that the forest was incorporating me even now. I tried to run. Fog thickened to a wall. Roots surged beneath my feet. Branches bent to block my path. My voice was stolen. Screams came out in tones that were not my own, layered with the whispers of the thing I had seen. The air vibrated with its study. Every heartbeat echoed in my skull. Every step remembered by moss, by tree, by root. I tripped, falling onto damp earth. The creature hovered over me, impossibly thin and long, limbs bending and twisting, spine folding as it leaned close. Its voice, a collage of mine and its own, slithered inside my mind. "Don't look at me. Don't look at me." I did. I could not stop, and the forest remembered. When I opened my eyes again, I was alone, or nearly. My hands brushed against the soil, and it pulsed under my touch, warm and responsive. Leaves curled toward me, branches twined around my legs, fog coiling at my shoulders. When I raised my reflection in a puddle, my face shimmered, lagging, wrong. Limbs bent back. My voice repeated fragments I didn't remember speaking. I moved with the forest now, not against it, not outside of it. The whispers were my own, the forest learning my patterns, my body a new extension of its will. I realized I could not leave. There was no path. There was only its memory, and now I was folded into it. Something crawled out from behind a tree again, whispering, not at me, but through me, "Don't look at me." And this time I could not tell where it ended, and I began to answer.